telling you this. Come on, has anyone ever started a statement with one of these phrases? Come on, we all have, right? Let's not be ashamed here. This is a place where you can come as you are. If you've ever started a phrase with one of those statements, then you know exactly what we're talking about tonight. And in this series, Emotional Hygiene, we're talking about the practices that we've got to employ in order to be able to keep up our emotional hygiene and in order for it to be as healthy as possible. We got the whole idea from this TED Talk where this guy talked about emotional hygiene. And he talked about dental hygiene being when you brush your teeth or when you floss sometimes right before you go to the dentist. That's my story anyways, TMI maybe. Or personal hygiene, you know, when you shower every day or when you break your arm, you go and get that taken care of. That's our personal hygiene. And emotional hygiene refers to being mindful of our psychological health and adopting brief daily habits. So in this whole series, we're unpacking some deep things that cause us to be emotionally healthy, and then we're talking about some practices that we can put into place to be as healthy as possible. And so tonight, we're gonna talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart because it has been a struggle my whole life, and I don't imagine it's gonna go away anytime soon. And I thought we could dive into it together because I'm sure I'm not the only person that deals with this, and it's this. Gossip. That's what we're going to talk about tonight because gossip is essentially a symptom of something else going on below the surface. Gossip is a symptom of some emotional unhealth happening in our lives. We gossip because something deeper is going on below the surface. But where does gossip come from? Right? Because we're all used to it, we're all aware of it. We've either gossiped about someone or someone has gossiped about us and it got back to us through the grapevine. I think, honestly, our grandmas play a big role in this, to be honest. Does everyone have a grandma that literally, they're on the phone all the time? Like, I didn't know that they knew that many people, but they know that many people and they're talking about all of them. We all had a grandma who was on the phone at some point, or maybe for you, it was your dad or your uncle around, or your sister or your mom, but we've all have a family member. I just thought this picture of the grandma was the most funny. You guys already saw it, that's good. Because she had curlers in her hair, it's like so quintessential grandma. But we hear it from our grandma. If you went to middle school and high school, gossip was like the way you got by. Gossip is like a currency that you use in order to like keep your friend group and in order for you to stay cool. Gossip for me was like a defense mechanism. Like it's how I defended myself in middle school and high school. For me, high school actually looked a lot like this. One of the best lines of that whole movie, Mean Girls. Any Mean Girls fans in the house? Yes, what a classic throwback. Honestly, there were so many scenes in that movie I wanted to pull, and we had to bleep some stuff out clearly because it's Mean Girls. Like, wow, okay. But that was high school for me. Maybe that was high school for you as well. A show that came out around high school, college for me was a show about these like really hot people that lived on the Upper East Side called Gossip Girl. Yeah, this is the most like annoying picture that I could find of this TV show, honestly. I never saw it. I'm getting major shade from my friend Macaulay because she's like, you didn't see Gossip Girl? I didn't. I never watched it, but I hear it's amazing and like really glamorizes gossip, which is great, right? Because if you were in high school or college watching this, you either wanted to be a gossip girl or you certainly wanted to date a gossip girl. Am I right? So gossip has been glamorized in the media. TMZ is a thing for a reason. E-News is a thing for a reason. And this is not just a girl problem. This is a human problem because my husband, Adam, he gets flashes on his phone, like he has all of his notifications on at all times, which drives me batty, but he gets these notifications from ESPN based off of the game he's watching, but he gets a certain specific kind of notification called transfer gossip. Like this is a thing. So they literally call it transfer gossip. When a team is talking about buying another player, and when we hear about a player not really getting along with coach, they're thinking about moving to another team. So this is like a guy thing too as well. Like this happened on the field in the locker room. Gossip was very present in middle school and high school. Social media makes this really easy to gossip because something can happen on the other side of the world and we can all know about it within minutes like we were there. So gossip is huge in society. I don't see it going away anytime soon. But if we're honest, the real reason why we gossip, if we're honest, is because it's kind of fun, right? I love this quote that Michael Scott says. He says, when you have somebody's attention and their eyes are lighting up because they are very interested in what you have to say, that is a great feeling. It's wonderful to be the center of attention. I love that quote. I know that quality of the video was so bad, but I'm like, team, we gotta play it because of that quote. And also to prove that it is a guy problem as well as a girl problem. But this is true for me. I'm a natural storyteller, if you can't tell. I grew up in theater, so theatrics are like in me. I see you, Gene. And this is just who I am. I love being the center of attention. I love telling a story to somebody and seeing their eyes lighting up because they are completely focused on what I'm saying because they should not know this story. I'm telling them gossip. It honestly, I feel like it releases endorphins, especially if it's like a big crowd of people. Like, I love sharing a story and like this whole circle is just staring at me and they're like totally locked in. They're like, what happened next? And I'm like, you won't believe it. And then I'm like elaborating at this point, probably lying. I mean, gossip can really take a toll on me. But this is true, right? I mean, gossip is something that we do for fun. And one of the best definitions I've seen of gossip, it's from a guy named Dave Ramsey, who is like this financial guru, has a radio show. He has an incredibly strict policy on gossip at his organization. He actually fires people for gossiping, like no lie. Like you get one warning, then you're out. So I feel like all of us would be fired from our jobs if we worked there. Maybe just me. But he says that gossip is discussing anything negative with someone who can't help solve the problem. I'll say that again because it's so simple but so profound. Gossip is discussing anything negative with someone who can't help solve the problem. When we read that, we're like, ugh, yeah, I don't want to gossip. I don't want to be negative about somebody else. But why do we continue to do it? If we know it's bad, why do we continue to do it? Well, I think that gossip makes us feel connected. It makes us feel like we are connecting with somebody else, especially if this is like a new friend. You find something in common. Normally it's about something else said. And I've used this as icebreakers. I'm like, God, can you believe what she was wearing? Hey, I'm Mallory. Like, why would you want to be my friend after doing that? But I've done that as icebreakers, right? You have too. Brene Brown, who we talk about a lot here, she's a shame researcher, author, writer, all around just an awesome woman. Brene Brown says this about gossip. She says, a lot of times we share things that are not ours to share as a way to hotwire connection with a friend. I love this because it's so true, right? We share things that we know we have no business sharing. We know the other person honestly probably doesn't even care, but we really want to hotwire that connection. We want to feel connected. See, have you guys ever heard the phrase, your mom probably said it to you growing up, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. See, a gossip says, if you don't have anything nice to say, come sit next to me, girl, or come sit next to me, guy, man. This is what gossip says. See, gossip, when it happens between two people, when you spark this connection, it makes you feel like you have something in common, right? It makes you feel like you are better friends than you ever have been with anybody else because they just get you. And Brene Brown would call this common enemy intimacy. Isn't this genius? She says, this kind of relationship where you have this common enemy intimacy, it's really only built on one thing. It's about hating the enemy together. You're no longer alone in hating the enemy. You can do this together with friends, and it's gonna make you feel connected. It's gonna make you feel like you have an intimate relationship. See, we're all tempted to be a part of these relationships, right? Because it makes us feel connected. But gossip is kind of like a rash on our skin. It kind of means like something is appearing above the surface. We see it, it's nasty. It probably like itches somewhat, it's discolored. It's like this ugly rash. See, gossip is kind of like a rash because it should be a clue to us, it should be a sign to us that something deeper is going on below the surface that is causing this rash. I realized that I had a rash. A couple months ago, I was at dinner with some friends, and it was a big group, and I noticed that one of my friends was just acting different towards me. She was treating me differently. She wasn't totally making eye contact with me. She was acting kind of cold. And I began to write this story about her, saying, oh my God, this is just who she is. She's just so dramatic, and she's just trying to get my attention, and I'm not gonna let it bother me. But I had this massive pit in my stomach. Maybe you guys know what I'm talking about. And I had to ask myself, why do I have this pit in my stomach? Why am I worried? And I realized I was worried that she had heard what I said about her. I was worried that she knew that I had gossiped about her, that it had come back to her, and I realized, wow, I have a rash. I have a problem with gossip. Have you ever been there? Have you ever wondered if you have a problem with gossip? You've seen this rash kind of come up, and you've said, why do I have this rash? What am I worried about? This happens if you've ever had to watch yourself, what you're saying around other people, or maybe you've texted something to somebody and then you go back 5 minutes later and you're like, oh my gosh, I hope that that text went to the right person and not the person I was texting about, because it is the worst when it goes to them. This has happened probably to everybody. Everyone knows that feeling, right? And we hate it. And we want to get rid of it because ultimately, it's not gonna lead to authentic relationships. Ultimately, it's just gonna isolate us because a relationship built on this common enemy intimacy will only be counterfeit. Because ultimately, if you're in a relationship like this, you can't trust the other person. You might like them, you might have a good hang with them, but ultimately, you don't trust them, and they don't trust you either. And we wanna be trustworthy people. We wanna say, like, I'm not a gossip, but it is so hard to see gossip in the mirror. Here's why this matters. Gossip hinders authentic relationships and limits our emotional hygiene from ever getting to a healthy place. Gossip is gonna hinder those authentic relationships because, to be honest, nobody likes a gossip, right? Nobody can trust a gossip. Ultimately, gossips who are yearning for connection end up actually isolated because they have no friends, because nobody trusts them and nobody wants to hang out with them. Ultimately, as long as gossip gets a grip on our emotional health, it will be the lid and the limit to our emotional health. We will not be all that God has created us to be if we're emotionally unhealthy and gossip is gripping us. So, luckily in this series, we're talking about some practices that we can employ to make sure that this symptom of gossip doesn't come out and doesn't create us to be emotionally unhealthy. And I found this scripture. There's actually a lot of scriptures in the Bible about gossip and taming our tongue. And it was hard to pick, but I chose one. I'm reading a lot about Paul right now. And I feel like Paul has got something really unique and wise to tell us that will be very applicable as we put a practice into place about gossip. And if you're here tonight and you wouldn't consider yourself a Christian, you wouldn't consider yourself a Jesus follower, maybe it's because you know a lot of Christians that are gossipers. Christians, just a tangent, we're really crafty about gossip, aren't we? Because sometimes we put it into prayer requests. We're like, listen, we've really got to be praying for so-and-so because their marriage is in shambles. Or you know what? She's just going down a rough road. We need to pray for her. Christians sometimes can be the very worst at this. And you're here tonight going, yeah, like what could your book of wisdom have to say about gossip? Like y'all got to read it. And I agree, we need to. But I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised about what Paul has to say about gossip and how we can put a practice that he says in our lives. So Paul is talking to a group of people in Ephesus. He wrote this book called Ephesians, and Paul had an encounter with Jesus that completely transformed his life. Paul was actually a persecutor of Christians, like Adam talked about last week, and then he had an encounter with Jesus that changed everything for him, and he began to build what we know now as the local church. And so he studied and practiced the life of Jesus and shared it with other people. And so Paul is talking in Ephesians to this group of people, and he says this: don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth. Pretty basic, right? Like, hey, don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth. We read that and we're like, yeah, that's a great word. I did some research on the word unwholesome, and it's amazing what the actual definition of unwholesome is. It literally means not good for your health. Unwholesome means not good for your health. And I just think it's amazing that we're in this series called Emotional Hygiene, talking all about our emotional health. And Paul says, hey, don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth. Unwholesome meaning not good for your health. And what's great is that Paul doesn't end there. He actually gives us a solution that I think will help us today. He says, don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Well, what does helpful mean? I think that's the most operative word that we can pick out of this verse. Have you ever talked about someone and it's not necessarily bad what you say, but you definitely know it's not helpful? It's not helpful to the person who is listening to it, and it's not helpful to the person that you're talking about. So what does helpful mean? Well, I think Paul would say that it benefits those who listen. I think he would say, hey, here's what's helpful. If you say something and it benefits the person who's listening, and it not only benefits the person listening, but it benefits the person or the situation that you could be talking about. It's a win-win. It's helpful and it benefits other people. See, gossip tends to benefit one person, right? Us. Benefits number one. Gossip, we gossip for all sorts of reasons. We're venting, maybe something crappy is just going on, and you just straight up need to get it off your chest. But Paul's saying, does it benefit the person that you're sharing it with, or is it benefiting you? Is venting helping you? Because there are tons of places that you can do it. Well, maybe not tons. There's a place that you can do that. It's called counseling, probably, or with like your safe person. But venting through gossip benefits you. Or maybe you're feeling insecure about something, or you're comparing yourself to somebody else, and you really need a friend to affirm you and say, you are so much better than him. What are you talking about? Like, you are way better than him. That is benefiting us. Or maybe you just cannot keep a secret in and you have to share it with somebody, and it only benefits you by getting it out. See, I think what Paul is saying here is that we've got to now have a guide for how we talk to people. If we're going to say something, it has to be helpful and it has to benefit those who listen. I was talking to my counselor this week. Her name is Joy, and she is literally a godsend. I love this woman. And we're talking about this issue of gossip. And she shared an allegory with me that I'd love to share with you now. I'd never heard it before, so if you have, just stick along for the ride. But she talked about, thank you. Okay, I have a switchblade right now, so we're good. Okay. She talked about, everyone's really nervous now. They're like, you said you were theatrical, I'm concerned. It's about to get real theatrical up in here. So essentially, Joy talked about this story where there's a group of people and someone had spread rumors about somebody in their community. And it got out, and it got back to that person. So the person who had gossiped went to their friend and said, hey, I said this, I'm really sorry, will you forgive me? And the friend forgave this person, but he said, hey, I want you to go and get a feather pillow, which must be really weird, but it's an allegory, so we'll go with it. So homegirl goes and gets a feather pillow. She brings it back to her friend, and her friend says, okay, I want you to cut the pillow up, which I'm going to attempt to do right now. I did practice this. He said, I want you to cut the pillow up. Oh, wow, and feathers came out, right? Let's put this away. And he said, I want you to tear the pillow and shake all the feathers out of it. Yep, this is dramatic, everybody, but you get where I'm going with this. But this is a lot of feathers. And imagine if I was outside, we would have the feathers all over the place, right? Or imagine if I brought a fan in, we would have feathers going all over the place. And essentially, what he's saying is that, hey, you have spread rumors about me, and now there's feathers everywhere. And you're not gonna be able to get them back. You're not gonna be able to put these back in the pillow exactly the way that they came, am I right? This is like way more than I expected. So there's feathers everywhere, and they're probably having like a pillow dance party or something. But he says, hey, listen, the whole point of this is that literally, if I were trying to get all of these feathers back into this pillowcase, I would not be able to do it, right? Especially if I was outside. This story would really work outside, let's be real. I could maybe try and like put some of these feathers back into this pillowcase, right? And I could try and like sew it up and sleep with it tonight, but I bet that there would be some pillow remnants, some feather remnants on my bed, am I right? Because this is impossible. And this is essentially what the allegory is telling us, that the point of watching your mouth and making sure that nothing unwholesome comes out of it is because you can't control where these feathers go. And you can ask for forgiveness. I think that is an incredibly valuable thing to do, but they're already out there. And like Michael Scott said, you cannot put it back in. So how do we know when we have a pillow full of feathers and we're spreading feathers around? How do we know? Well, Joy, who is this wise sage in my life, says this: if you're not part of the problem and you're not a part of the solution, then it's gossip. How simple is that? If I'm not a part of the problem and I'm not a part of the solution, then it's gossip. So essentially, if someone comes to me and says, hey, oh my God, did you hear? I'm gonna say, I really wanna listen to this, but am I gonna be a part of the problem? Am I a part of the solution? If it's no, you gotta shut it down, Olivia Pope style, okay? Don't say anything, but am I a part of the problem? Am I a part of the solution? Then it's gossip. And when you're talking about somebody, when you're saying words at all, the question that I want us to ask ourselves this week, the practice that I want us to put in place, is just to ask ourselves, is this helpful? Does this benefit those that listen? Does this benefit the person I'm talking about? Is this helpful? And the last question is, am I a part of the solution? Or am I just trying to hotwire connection? Am I a part of the solution, and is this helpful? Does this benefit those that hear? Or am I gonna have a messy cleanup on aisle 5 full of feathers that I can't put back into place? So this week, I want us to ask ourselves, whenever we get that urge to gossip, or whenever someone even gossips to us, to ask ourselves, is this helpful? Am I a part of the solution? Because I think the only way that we as a community at MP Nights can actually be a come as you are kind of place, like we talk about, and like it's painted on the outside of our building, the only way that we can actually be a community that allows people to come as they are is if we are a safe community. If people can feel like they can come exactly as they are because we have their back, because we don't gossip about each other. This is so crucial for us to get at this point in our journey together at MP Nights, because we're such a small community and we're beginning to build small groups and we're beginning to hang out with people we've never met before, and gossip can actually tank it. Gossip has ruined groups of friends. You know it. We've all seen the movie Mean Girls. Someone's gonna get thrown in front of a bus. Okay, let's not let that happen, MP Nights. Like, let's be a community of people who only want to say helpful things so that it would benefit those that listen, and ultimately would be the most inviting place to bring people in to church so that they can experience the love and transformation of Jesus. Let me pray for us. God, thank you for feathers. Thank you for wise people like Joy in my life who can speak such truth to me with clarity through story. God, I thank you for Paul's words, that he said them forever ago, and they are so applicable to us today. I just pray, God, that you would give us courage as we decide to put these words into practice. God, give us wisdom beyond our years. Give us your heart for people so that as gossip comes to our brains, we wouldn't even want to share it because it is not helpful and it doesn't benefit those that listen. God, I thank you for your son, Jesus, and the perfect example he was to us here on earth, and that we can still walk with him today, be in a relationship with him today that can transform us and allow us to live better lives, emotionally healthy lives. We love you, and it's in your son, Jesus' name, I pray. Amen.